Hi, everyone. Welcome to Reading Between the Lines. I'm Sarah, and I'm joined by my mom, Nicole.
Hello, this is Nicole.
And it's been a little bit since we we recorded. I have been very ill, and not really been interested in reading, honestly, and that happens sometimes.
Well, you sound a lot better.
Yeah,
Glad you're
but
I'm
just
glad you're feeling better.
thank you. But also just the motivation to read and be focused on something and retain it
Yeah.
was not happening. So. Um, And I know also we had a different theme picked out for this podcast, but it failed, and I want to just mention that because this is reading life. And so Mom had the great idea of doing a theme about Greek mythology and retellings. And what happened?
Well, I have read some really great Greek myth retellings in the past. I've
Yes.
really enjoyed certain books. Clytemnestra was one of the best examples. Circe
Hmm.
was excellent. And I just thought, oh, well, let's do more of that. But I just couldn't get into it. I started 3 or 4 books and just found my interest just wasn't wasn't there right now. So,
Yeah.
we
I don't.
switched up the topic. Hopefully someday we'll get to do our Greek mythology chat,
Yeah.
but right
Well.
now we decided to do a genre to talk about a genre that is actually quite appropriate for fall.
Mhm.
Do you want to talk about it, or shall I go ahead and introduce
I
it?
I want you to introduce it, but I had one quick question, which was, didn't Hera just come out? Did you not get that
I
from like
did.
Book
I
of the Month?
ordered that one from, Book of the Month
Oh,
Club. It's on my
oh,
TBR shelf, and hopefully I haven't ruined my Greek mythology retelling,
um,
for the foreseeable future, because I really did wanna read that book.
okay. But also, and the one that you read recently, was it James?
Yes.
That kind of counts. That was a good one
Well,
from a past episode, but right? Wasn't that
I
like the
would say
Odyssey?
James was, I mean, very, very loosely based
Oh,
on the Odyssey, but it was really more of, Mark Twain
oh,
take on the adventures of Huckleberry Finn.
that's right. Okay, now I'm ready to talk about Dark Academia. So,
Well, in the fall, obviously my reading mood changes, and I find myself reaching for books with a darker atmosphere, maybe moodier themes, even a touch of melancholy. And a genre that comes to mind is dark academia. Books in this genre are often set at a university or boarding school, always with a brooding or gothic atmosphere, and the characters in the books are often immersed in intellectual or other pursuits that lead them down dark and sometimes very dangerous paths.
intellectual or other. What is that? It's a little
Well,
vague.
for instance, a prime example of a dark academia novel is The Secret History by Donna Tartt, which was written back in 1992. And this is the book that is first on the list if you're going to search for novels about with the dark academia theme. And this one is very typical in that it is set at an elite private university in Vermont with a group of students being led by an enigmatic professor who teaches Greek. And as the book progresses, the students become increasingly isolated from the world and really under this professor's spell. And they are led to lapses in moral judgment and obsessions that lead them to commit murder. So, the elite private university college students, that's kind of the standard. However, there are other examples of dark academia books that are set, for instance, at um, a school for troubled girls or a private boarding school. So it's not always college uh, students, and it's also not always the students are not always involved in some kind of a club or a culture. Think of the movie, The Dead Poets Society. Those were students, again, who were under the influence of a very charismatic professor who led them down some paths that were questionable. So there are some other more recent examples of dark academia that I've enjoyed quite a bit, and I'd love to share them with our listeners. Would you like to go first, or would you like me to jump in?
Oh, I was muted. You go first.
Okay. The first book that I'd like to recommend is The Broken Girls by Simone St. James, which was published in 2018 by Berkeley. And this book features a dual timeline. In 1950 Vermont, Idlewild Hall is the place for troubled girls that no one wants. The misfits, the troublemakers, the ones too smart for their own good. So this is not set at a college. These girls are probably, I'm going to say, between 14 and 16.
Did you say
Anyway,
what year this takes place?
1950.
Okay, thank you.
But it's a dual timeline. And so the other timeline is more recent, like in present day Vermont. So anyway, there are 4 troubled girls who are attending this boarding school, and they bond over their shared miseries and become very close. And then one of them disappears. I think it's important to mention that the school is supposedly haunted, which adds another element to the spooky factor. So the other timeline is 2014 Vermont, where we have a character named Fiona Sheridan, who is a journalist who's never accepted the circumstances of her own sister's death 20 years earlier. At that time, Fiona's elder sister's body was discovered just abandoned on the grounds of Idlewild Hall. Her boyfriend was tried and convicted of the crime, but Fiona has never bought that story. When Fiona learns that an investor has begun renovations on Idlewild Hall and that a surprising discovery's been made, she decides to investigate some secrets that were meant to stay hidden. Now, Idlewild Hall is a very creepy place, and you do get this supernatural element of a character that is supposedly was a student who was killed or disappeared many years prior, and she is supposedly haunting the place.
There's a very because I've read this book as well, and it's very, am I saying this word right? Macabre. It's
Yes.
kind of a great atmosphere to
And
the
I don't
book.
know if you've read other books by Simone St. James.
Yes.
There was a book about a haunted motel.
Yeah, I love
I've
that one.
forgotten the title is escaping me, but that one
Sundown.
there was
Sundown.
a creepy ghost that was haunting the various motel rooms. That was
Yes.
very dark.
Yes.
Anyway, I did enjoy the dual timelines. You know how it's kind of a bummer when you're reading a book with multiple points of view or dual timelines, that you really are much more interested in one of them than the other.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when it switches, it's like, oh darn, I really wanted to stick with that
Yeah.
timeline. But anyway, this one was not annoying at all. I really enjoyed the dual timelines and found the ghost element very creepy. It was done really well. And this book brings together 2 great elements for a fall book, which are dark academia and a ghost story.
And murder.
And murder, yeah, for sure.
Yes.
I gave this book 4 stars, and I do recommend it. I think it's a good choice for going into spooky season.
I do too. I also love, for me, I read this book a couple, maybe more than a couple years ago, but I remember the grounds of the school being as like, as soon as you step foot, you can kind of feel an energy shift, or at least for
Mhm.
me as the reader, like the atmosphere is very, subdued and dark and unhappy.
Right.
But yeah, that was a good one. And it was a kind of a classic example of the genre.
So do you agree with me on my description of what qualities make a dark academia book?
Yes, because in the other lists that not the other lists, but this lists that I researched on Goodreads of what other people have considered as dark academia, there
Mhm.
was quite a number of them that I don't consider dark academia,
Mm.
that I have read, and I was like, I don't think that really counts. So for me, it's academics. It needs to be a school setting. Like,
Right.
absolutely.
That's for
Absolutely.
sure.
Um, but otherwise, yeah, I think that the examples that you and I will talk about today definitely play tribute to that. Another one, maybe there's some time if we have time for honorable mentions, but Babel, which was a good one that came out recently. Do you consider that dark academia?
Yes, I do. I do indeed.
Okay.
And Babel is unusual in that, yeah, it's set at a college, but it's in a kind of an alternate reality.
Yeah. But there's a
And
fantasy element too, of course. But
right. And anyway, that book was a very complex and interesting book, but it is definitely set at an institute of higher learning.
okay. Well, the next one that I have, and I may have talked about this briefly with my brother in a previous podcast, or I had intended to talk about it. I can't remember if you've heard about this one all before, but Leigh Bardugo, Ninth House. This
Mm.
is a two-book series, a duology. Book one, so again, Ninth House, it came out on October 8th of 2019 by Flatiron Books. This all takes place at Yale. So our main character is Alex, and she's probably the last person you would expect to end up at Yale. She's covered in tattoos. She grew up in a really rough part of Los Angeles. Her mom was a hippie who dropped out of school. I think Alex even maybe hasn't even finished high school herself. Her life took a really dark turn, and she got involved with a drug dealer boyfriend. Um, and then by the time that she was 20 years old, she was the only survivor of a very horrific and unsolved mass murder.
Mm.
So she was in a location where all the other people were killed, but she was not. But she was unconscious. So she has nothing to contribute to the police about what the hell happened that night.
Mm.
Anyway, while she is recovering in the hospital after this horrific event, she is visited by someone from Yale who offers her a full ride scholarship. Which sounds bizarre.
Yeah, right.
Um, and she's, it's like, what? So the long story short is she does arrive at Yale. She's basically there to not necessarily spy, but to put some tabs on some of the clubs that are taking place on campus.
So
And
let
so
me
she,
jump in and ask a question here.
yeah,
Was that part of the deal with Yale? Is that she could go there if she became kind of their informant?
they would send her there, and they would also cover her hospital bills because she does not have any money or insurance. So they're going to basically take care of her financially as
What's in
long
it for
as
them, though?
exactly what
Oh,
is in it
we
for
don't know.
them. We find out later, and I don't wanna say, but
Okay, okay.
they do get a lot out of this deal, though it does
Okay,
seem very slanted toward helping Alex.
okay.
So her mysterious benefactors want her to keep tabs on on a couple secret societies at Yale. These are super elite, windowless clubs where future leaders and powerful figures hang out. So this
Mm,
is really a place where, again, like as I just said, future leaders are being groomed to take on high-powered positions in the world and also in the US.
mhm,
As Alex starts digging, she realizes that these societies are extremely dark, they're nefarious, and there's a lot of deep secrets involved. So she has some missions that she's going. It sounds stupid, but she's got missions that she takes part in. She also has a magical ability. So this is slightly fantasy. There are, oh gosh, I don't, this is so hard to describe. She has the ability to see the dead. I will
mm,
just say that. And so there is also an element of hell that is involved. This reminds me very much of the movie with Johnny Depp, Ninth Gate,
Oh, right.
where there are these secret societies that are, it's like a satanic cult, where they believe the devil is real and they're trying to invoke him. So there are definitely some similarities here. That's the best way I can describe it. But what's best about this in terms of dark academia, the description of the university is very well done. I believe Leigh is also like an associate faculty member at Yale in real life. And so she's definitely got firsthand knowledge of the university.
Ah,
For you and I, growing up on Stanford campus, there is a lot of familiarity with the vibe that you get. At least, I mean, I've never been to Yale, but I've been to Stanford at the campus. And as you and I know, there's lots of lovely little hidden nooks and crannies that are ancient and old and have strong
right.
smells, like the book crypt
Yes.
underneath the library, the stacks as they're called at Stanford.
Mhm.
Anyway, for me, there was a lot of really fun elements that kept me turning the pages. Alex being able to see ghosts, just the whole fully immersive atmosphere of the campus, and bringing that back for me of different memories. I gave this 4 stars. I actually really loved this book. I'm not sure why I didn't give it 5. Um, Fantastic. I really recommend it.
You're allowed to go back and alter your star rating
Yeah.
if you keep thinking about the book. You're allowed
Yeah.
to
Agreed.
change it. I had a completely different misunderstanding about what this book was. I thought
Yeah.
it was a fantasy.
I mean, there's some magic. I mean, yes, like Alex needs to unsolve this mystery of what is going on here, and she does need to go to hell. And to go to hell, you need to die. And that's all I'm gonna say. So,
Wow. Well,
but
you know
it's
what?
very
I'm gonna
fun.
pick this one up because the way
I
you've
might have
described
it.
it makes me see that I was not understanding at all what it was all about.
Yeah, it's lovely. Okay, your turn.
So the next book that I'd like to recommend is If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio, which was published, and my notes say in 201 by
Okay.
Flatiron. So sorry about
Well,
that. I think it was 2021
oh, but
by
that's interesting because Leigh Bardugo, that last book, was also from Flatiron. So
Oh, okay.
it's a good genre for them, I guess.
So If We Were Villains, this is the best dark academia book I think I've ever read. Sorry. It was absolutely excellent. In particular, the structure of the book was based on Shakespearean drama. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. I was trying to explain this book to your father, and he was so confused and just like had to stop me and like, but wait, what? So I'm going to start at the beginning. The book begins with one of the students, this is a former college student, being released from prison 10 years after supposedly murdering one of his cohorts at the college. The lead detective on the case never truly believed that Oliver is the character's name, that he was guilty, and he finagles an interview with him on his release from prison to try to get to the truth and find out what really happened. He suspects that Oliver made a false confession to save someone else.
Yeah.
So here's the setup, which was absolutely brilliant. The setting of the book is a private arts college that specializes in Shakespearean drama. The book is set up in 5 parts, exactly like the 5 acts of a Shakespearean play.
Ooh, I love this.
And in the history in Shakespeare's histories and his tragedies, this was always the setup. 5 parts,
Yep.
5 acts. And there are 7 main characters who are very typical of the characters you would find in a Shakespearean history or tragedy. Each student actor has a distinct personality, such as the hero, the villain, the ingenue, the loyal companion. And the reader has to ask themselves, were these students typecast, or did their immersion in their role bring out these inherent character traits that they possessed? Oops.
Interesting.
Are you there? I lost my thing. Okay.
Yep.
So, the story is a richly layered tale of obsession, passion, and friendship, and it absolutely pulled me in from the start. The lines are very blurred between the characters and the actors,
Hmm.
uh, um, and the acts that they commit in real life. The book has a really dark, broody atmosphere, and there is definitely a twist that you may not see coming.
Ooh.
There are lots of Shakespearean references, which as an English major, I enjoyed.
Yeah.
However, if you don't know much about Shakespeare or if you're kind of rusty on the subject, I think you would still really enjoy this book. It was a 5-star plus read for me. It was so well done. And if you Google reading guides or book club guides, there's quite a lot of insight that you can gain if you just do
Oh,
a little
wow.
research on the subject. So anyway, highly recommend.
I love that. I wonder if they've done any sort of movie adaptation or anything that is similar to the structure of this story. It sounds like Lawrence Fishburne needs to like be a part of the script or the
This book
screenplay.
would lend itself brilliantly to turning it into a movie.
That's what I think. All right, I gotta check that one out. Um, I'm just gonna jump into my next one for the sake of time, and this one is very, very, very weird, but it is also, I think, a modern classic,
Mhm.
which is Piranesi or Piranesi by Susanna Clarke.
Oh, I think it's Piranesi.
Oh, geez. That's like, remember, like, I went to order a bagel and I asked for Asiago, and they
Asiago
said,
cheese, yeah.
"Would you like Asiago?" I said, "Yeah, that, thanks."
No, I'm pretty
Okay.
sure it's Piranesi. That's how I've heard it pronounced anyway.
All right. Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. This is September 15th, 2020 from Bloomsbury. This book has racked up just about every sci-fi award nomination you can think of, and yet still dark academia. The Hugo, it didn't win, but it was up because it's up against some stiff competition that year. But Hugo, Goodreads, Nebula, you name it.
Mm.
The story centers around. Did you read this book? Well,
No, I think I own
oh,
it, but I have not read it.
you need to read this. Okay. The story centers around a character named, oh, I can't say it now, Piranesi, who lives in the
Piranesi.
I'm not gonna get this. Piranesi, who lives in this bizarre and otherworldly house. That's nothing like you've ever seen. The house is infinite, with endless corridors and rooms filled with thousands of statues, as if like from Greek mythology.
Mm.
Each statue is unique. There's even an ocean trapped within the labyrinth of halls of this house. There are seasons, there are climates, there are it's trackable, like the tides are trackable. And Piranesi, let me get back to this. So there's even an ocean trapped within the labyrinth of the halls, the waves that crash up staircases and flood entire rooms in a heartbeat. But here's the thing, Piranesi is not scared. It's all he remembers is living here in this house. He has a deep connection with the house and understands its tides, the patterns. He knows he's mapped out all the labyrinths and makes his life just exploring every inch of it. So, where does the academia part come in? So, the only other person in the house besides Piranesi is a man that he calls the other. And the other visits him twice a week and enlists his help in researching something that he calls a great and secret knowledge. And as our main character continues to explore, he starts finding clues that suggest that there were other people in this house. He finds clues that perhaps suggest that he is not the first person to inhabit this house. Um, the only way I can't give much more away, but I can say that the book is a vibe of basically like Tom Hanks in Castaway
Oh,
meets
okay.
meets Alice in Wonderland
Wow.
and a dash of Oxford. So it's very strange, very haunting, very mesmerizing, and I can't say much more, but
So it wasn't hard to follow?
no, because I would say perhaps the first half of this book, you're really with our main character, just kind of surviving and going along his daily habits, like going fishing so he can eat something for breakfast and, just surviving. And as you, he takes notes. He's a writer, and so he's journaling his existence, and you soon to kind of soon discover that he has no he's probably like 26 years old, but he doesn't really remember anything past maybe like 5 or 6 years ago.
So if you were to try to picture Piranesi in
Mhm.
your mind, is Piranesi a human or is he a spirit?
That is a great question, and you don't really know until later. So this is not necessarily a magical book, though it sounds magical.
Right.
This is a more of a science-y type of book.
Well, you certainly make it sound intriguing. I'm gonna have to go down and rummage around in my bookcase because I think I made room for more books by
Yeah.
placing my copy of Piranesi behind a whole bunch of other books. So it's
Lame.
I'm gonna have to take
Go get it.
take things apart, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna find it.
Okay, what do you have next?
Okay, this book won't be for everyone, that's for sure.
Okay.
But I'm gonna and it's a doozy to explain another one, but here I'm gonna try to do my best. The book is Plain Bad Heroines by Emily Danforth, which was published in 2020 by William Morrow. This story begins in 1902 at the Brookhants School for Girls. So it's another one of those girls
Mhm.
at boarding school settings. Flo and Clara are two girls who are obsessed with each other and also obsessed with a writer named Mary MacLane, who has just recently written a scandalous and best selling memoir. And the girls form kind of a private little club that they call the Plain Bad Heroines Society. And in their little club, which consists, at first anyway, of just the two of them, they gather secretly in an apple orchard to practice the sapphic behaviors and philosophy espoused by Mary MacLane.
Oh boy.
So they meet, as I said, secretly in this apple orchard on the school grounds to pay homage to their heroine. And it is in this orchard that the girls meet a macabre, there's that word again,
Mm.
death by yellow jackets.
What?
Yes,
Wait, say that again.
the girls are stung to death by a swarm of yellow jackets. And yellow jackets are featured quite a lot in this book.
So
So
all of
anyway,
our main characters just died.
well, these two girls did for sure.
Okay.
And their bodies are discovered and in the orchard, and they're clutching copies of Mary's memoir. So the Mary MacLane's memoir it comes to the attention of the administrators of the school, and of course, everyone's very shocked at her philosophies. And in the ensuing years, the secret society of the Plain Bad Heroines Society continues. It's adopted by other students, by other girls at the school who want to continue paying homage to this historical figure. But unfortunately, there are several other deaths that happen to students on campus, and each
By
one of
yellow
them
jackets?
well, each one is a little bit different, but each death is quite disturbing and very mysterious.
Oh gosh.
So ultimately, the school closes forever under a cloud of unease. So there's an alternate timeline that is the present day, where a Hollywood production team has arrived on the a site of the abandoned Brookhants School to shoot a horror movie based on the school's haunted and cursed past. So, in this timeline, the novel follows the production of the horror film starring a young queer actress named Harper Harper and a writer named Merritt Emmons, who's also female. And she wrote the book that the film is based on, which is about the school and the events that happened there, and Mary McLean's memoir that kind of started everything.
Right.
So, as the film crew delves deeper into the school's past, they find themselves increasingly entangled in supernatural occurrences that are similar to those that once plagued the school. So now we're in the modern day, but weird things are still
Things are still
happening
happening.
at Brookhampton
Wow.
School. So
Wow.
the book was very strange and it was deliciously creepy and atmospheric. And I really did like how it explored the struggles of women who defy social expectations. But my main criticism, it was much longer than it needed to be. And I mean by well over 100 pages longer than it necessary. And the other
Mhm.
thing that really started to bug me was it seemed like all the lesbians were being punished. I mean, every time two women got together, something horrible happened to them. And it was like, what's the message here? So
That
my
it might be
original rating
interesting.
when I finished the book, I was annoyed. It was too long and, what was with all these queer women getting killed off? But I kept thinking about the book, and here's an
Okay.
example of going back and changing the rating. It was very complex, and
Mm.
I ultimately raised my rating to a 4. I think I must have given it, like, 3.5 when I first, finished it. So, anyway,
Interesting.
that was this book is not gonna be for everyone, but it was very well done, and it took place on a very creepy, abandoned boarding school for girls.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that one sounds interesting. It would be interesting if we have any listeners or any lesbians who would like to give us their insight on the book.
Actually, yeah, that would be
That'd be
really
nice.
interesting.
Maybe there's something that wouldn't occur to us. So, um, all right. Well, my last was that your last book
That
to
was
talk
my
about?
3rd. I
Okay.
did wanna talk about, a dark academia book that what has just come out that I haven't read, and I thought it also might be fun if we each briefly just talked about what we're reading right this minute.
Yeah. Well, I have a third book, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to mention honorable mention. This is The Cloisters by Katy Hays. Katy is Katy. And this one was really great because it's not necessarily academia, but it still counts because um, this has to do with a museum and a young woman who's working at a museum, and there's a whole cast of characters, and there's like medieval art collectors. There is a theory that there is a deck of tarot cards that are medieval, that are
Ooh,
highly collectible, and if you can find all the cards and collect the full deck, you can actually tell the future with this magical deck. There's a murder, there's mystery, it's super atmospheric. So I do recommend that one a lot. Um, okay.
do you have a
So
physical copy of it?
I
Cloisters?
think I sold it. I'll check, but I think I sold it on Pango
'Cause
Books.
my
But
understanding is that the Cloisters, the young woman who's working at the museum, isn't she a graduate student?
yeah. Oh, that's
So
true. Yeah.
so
She is
that
a yeah.
counts for sure.
That counts. Oh, right, because she's got faculty that she's working with, and there's a bit of a taboo thing happening with
Right,
students and
right. The
faculty. Okay,
Cloisters.
okay.
Okay, that sounds good.
Um, and there's even like some poisonous plants. There's a gardener. Like I really I
I like
enjoyed this so much.
the tarot card element.
I mean, come on. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the best. Okay, what am I reading now? I am struggling to get through Butter. I
Oh,
posted
isn't that too bad? You said it jumps all over the place?
It's very stream of consciousness with the
Oh,
writing, and we jump from the main character having deep thoughts to suddenly we're in a different location and she's talking to another character. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
That's
Wait,
confusing.
what? How did we get here? Okay.
It was
So,
interesting. I bought that book for you when we were in Europe because I kept seeing young women reading it on the tube in London.
it's
And
it's very good. I mean, and for people who don't know what we're talking about, this is a book about a serial killer this is a Japanese fiction book. It is about a serial killer who's female. She is extremely feminine and overweight, and uses her skills as a domestic goddess to have men pay for her lifestyle.
Hmm.
And these men want to marry her, and they all wind up dying in mysterious ways. Nobody can pin the murders to her, but she is currently in a detention center awaiting a retrial. And our other main character is a journalist who is trying to get a scoop on writing, about this killer. However, the killer will not talk to her about anything except food. And our main character is she works all the time. She's not very domestic. Our main character is a bit, I don't know what the word is. I don't want to say she's non-binary. She looks masculine and she has more masculine behaviors. She has a boyfriend, but I think there's some character development where she might decide that she is either bi, or that she is a lesbian, or that she wants to embrace. It's hard to. She wants to embrace. Maybe, yeah, like she rides both sides of behaving and acting and looking very masculine, and then she's beginning to discover and be in touch more with her femininity as well, and becoming more domestic through her correspondence with this serial killer.
Interesting.
But
And the
it's too
serial killer,
long.
the serial killer is a chef, right? That's important to the story.
Yes. There's also a butter shortage, and everything delicious and amazing is made with butter.
Don't we all know that? Imagine
Right?
what the world would be like without butter.
So, will this book ever end? Will we ever know what happens? I don't.
It is a chunker. It looks
Yeah.
like it has a lot of pages. That's too
My
bad.
my cold medicine brain has just not been able to like sink into it. So, what about you? What are you reading, Mom?
Well, I wanted to first just tell our listeners that there is a new dark academia book that was published August 20th, which was Tuesday of this week, by William Morrow. The book is called The Four, as in 1, 2, 3, 4, by Ellie Keel. And it's about 4 scholarship students who find themselves immersed in a world of privilege and power at the university where they are going to school. And according to those who knew them, these 4 students were considered quite dangerous. I mean, not only are they poor, but they're dangerous. In the book, something terrible happens. And if they could, these students would definitely do it again.
Oh,
so that got my attention. So the book that I am reading right now, it's actually I'm experiencing the Audible version.
Okay.
And it's Catherine Stedman's new book called Look in the Mirror. So it's on our shared Audible account, so you can listen to it too.
Is it
and
good?
This book, I am so confused and lost, and I do not have any idea what is going on.
Oh no.
There is our main character. Well, there's 2 main characters. One of them her father has just passed away, and she was always very close to her father. He was a university professor, and he passed away after a short illness, and she has been going through all of his belongings, and the estate is getting settled, and it looks like she's going to come into some money, but not anything, a huge fortune. But then she's contacted by a different law firm from the British Virgin Islands, and this attorney says, well, very sorry about hearing about your father's passing, but you've inherited a property
This
here,
property. Yeah.
and it is a big property, a very
Palatial.
expensive palatial property that she never knew existed, never knew that her father even visited the British Virgin Islands.
That would be like Dad having a house on Lake Como.
Exactly,
Like,
exactly, and it's like, "What?" And so she has to fly to the British Virgin Islands to take possession of this house, which, she's busy, she's got her own life, she doesn't wanna live in the British Virgin Islands, but very, very weird things start happening in this house. And the other point of view is a young woman who supposedly, is arriving to substitute for a nanny that this extremely wealthy family, employs. The nanny is going on a 2-week vacation, and they've hired this young woman to take care of the children for the 2 weeks. So she gets to this palatial house in the British Virgin Islands, and she is told there's nobody there. Someone greets her and lets her in, but there's no children and there's no father, which she was expecting to meet. And she's told, well, they've been delayed. So just make yourself comfortable, enjoy the house, but don't go into the room down in the basement.
oh, come on. That's like, who says that to anybody ever?
Whatever you do, that room is off
Oh,
limits.
come on. Oh,
And
no.
so the dad and the children never show up, and she's there. They tell her she's still going to get paid, but she's not allowed to leave the premises, and she's not allowed to go into the basement room. And then some very weird things start happening. So there's these two timelines, and I'm confused. Are they happening in the same house, or are these two different houses?
How
Are they
far
two
in are
different
you?
women? And, the title is Look in the Mirror. What does that mean? So anyway, I am completely confused, but I'm enthralled at the same time.
Wow. All right. Well, I have to run, and I think we have done Dark Academia, a lovely introduction to it. I think this is a theme that we can revisit again in the future, because I am sure that there are people listening who are like, but what about, this one, and what about that one,
Right. Yeah,
So
if any listeners have some suggestions, please put it in the comments. Let us
yeah.
know. We'll have more Dark Academia books to look into.
Yeah, would love to talk more about this. Also, just quickly, for anyone who's looking for books for their teens or tweens, that is a Dark Academia. The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is a good one, about a destitute young high school student who inherits $1 bazillion and has to go live an amazing
Yep.
clockwork puzzle house and figure out
As one does, yes.
mystery, right? Yeah, it's very, but it's good. If you got a teen or a tween, this is a good one for them.
Cool.
All right. Well, thanks, Mom.
All
This was
right.
fun.
Good chatting with you. Feel better.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye, friends. Thank you.
Bye.